At 7 WMOM and Hot Country Hits 99.9. Chris here with you. Good morning to you and as well Kathy Winczewski, City Councilor for the City of Ludington. Kathy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thanks for coming in. Together between you and Mitch Foster, the city manager of Ludington, reached out the other day and said, hey, we've got to spread the word about the invasive species that's affecting the area. And saw the post on the City of Ludington's Facebook page just the other day. We're going to be talking over the next few minutes about these invasive species and it's not just Mason County. For all of the listeners out there, these species, they just they take over, don't they?
They really do. One of their most attacking methods is they send out a chemical that does not allow other plants to grow near them. So that's one of the things that they do. But they attack the area.
Well, we're going to be talking in depth over the next few minutes about this. And for those that are listening on the radio, you can certainly tune into our Facebook pages as well as our YouTube channel and check out, because Kathy has brought some of these with her, and we're going to be showing those here in a couple minutes. Kathy, let's kind of break this down just a little bit in regards to, if you're a homeowner out there, is there some sort of preventativeness that we can do, or are we just living with these and now we've got to kind of attack them back because they're attacking our yards and gardens and everything else out there?
Well, if you maintain your yard really, really well, most people don't have problems with them.
Okay.
If there's an area of your yard that's unmaintained a little bit, maybe by a fence line, or you've got a garden that hasn't been maintained for years, it's real easy for any of these to start. And what we found is that the city of Ludington seems to be an epicenter for these three invasive species we'll talk about today. And no one can explain to us why that is, but once they start, it's very hard to get rid of them. It's not only a let's get rid of them right now with a treatment method, but it's maintaining too.
Okay.
So for a few years you need to maintain, and it might be, Chris, with some of these forever because they're tenacious.
Well, and that was one question I was thinking of asking, is that, can we actually overcome this in our yards? But sometimes it is just when you spot it, try to attack it as quickly before it starts to spread. You have and we'll talk a little bit more details about this, is that you have an individual coming in to the city council meeting on August 14th, going to be talking more in depth about this. But it sounds like you're very educated on this already too, right?
Well, I've been attacking invasive species for about 6 years in Cartier Park.
Wow.
I'm not an expert on it by far, but I have been dealing with it for quite a while. And Ludington has, the only ones we're talking about in Ludington right now are three of them. Bittersweet, Japanese Knotweed, and Tree of Heaven. There are a whole lot of other invasive species, but when Vicki Sawicki comes in to City Council on April 14th, we're hoping she's going to address those three particularly. So if people are interested in coming and listening to those, that's what she'll address on Monday.
Is this different, Kathy, than, like when we were talking about planting of the petunias for the petunia parade and some of those roots that just, go forever and it's hard to cut through them and get rid of them in some areas? Is that what we're talking about a little bit, or is this totally different, these species?
Well, these species are different. They were brought here from Asia in the early or late 1800s. They're not, sadly, deer don't eat them. Okay. Their root systems are very deep, and they can propagate by two methods, either a rhizome root system or through a seed system. And so the roots can actually damage homes and foundations of homes, sidewalks, our water systems underneath the streets, the water pipes and sewer pipes. So this is not just I don't like the look of it, or I don't like the smell of it.
Yeah.
It really is getting to be a concern because we have so much of it here.
Let's for those that are watching, let's show these species if that's okay. You've got three plants with you, and then also a visual on a card. Let's start with the worst of the worst. In your opinion, I guess. I mean, they're all bad,
Right.
But is there one that is just horrible for our homes? You mentioned that some of them can really kind of barrel into our foundation as well.
Yes. This is called Japanese Knotweed, and if I can show this one, this is on a card.
Okay.
So some people call it Michigan bamboo. I didn't cut one of these to bring into the office because they are the worst.
Okay.
They look like bamboo. Their stems look like bamboo, especially in the fall when they turn a little brown. They have heart-shaped leaves on them. If you cut this down, it will come back 100-fold. It gets very angry. So what do we do in Michigan, really, to get rid of a lot of things we don't want in our yard? We cut it down or we dig it out. And if you do that with this one, it will come back the next year with many, many more sprouts. So this one is, and this will go into the foundation of your house, your garage. I've seen it just recently growing through the cracks in the sidewalk. This is the most aggressive, and I think probably the hardest one to get rid of totally.
Why do you think that? Why do you think it grows back a tenfold like that? What makes it do that?
It's just its nature, Chris. It's just we don't have native plants that do anything like that. This is an invasive, and because nothing attacks it at all, when we cut it, its nature is to come back with more rhizomes, more roots, more sprouts, and nothing ever attacks it. So it comes back very forcefully.
Okay, and so when we're talking to the listeners and viewers this morning, what is the solution then? Is there and I know chemicals is one thing that comes to mind, but what is the plan of attack that you would recommend?
Well, if you have Japanese knotweed in your yard, for sure, I would recommend that you hire the conservation district to come in and attack that for you and teach you what you need to do for maintenance. This is a real strong chemical, a glyphosate that's extremely concentrated, that they'll come in and they actually take a syringe, a special syringe, and they shoot it into that bamboo stem, which is hollow. And then that plant will die over the winter. It takes it down to the roots in the fall. You treat it in the fall. It'll die, and then you can cut those. We can take those dead stems off. Now, you'll get some sick ones coming up the next year that then have to be treated too with not as strong glyphosate. So the homeowner can probably do that. But it'll probably be a 2 or 3 year issue to take care of. I did this in an alley by my house, and it was a great infestation in one person's yard. Actually, it had grown through into the garage. It was growing in the garage. So it went right through the mortar or the brick into the garage. It took us 3 years, but I was just walking by there the other day, and he doesn't have any.
Oh, that's good to see. Well, and I guess that would be the question is, from the homeowner, it's not something we've done. We haven't gone to Home Depot or the greenhouse and said, "Hey, I like that. Let's plant that." It's something that has maybe come from somebody else's yard or in the area.
As far as I know, no one sells Japanese knotweed. No one.
All right.
But it's got a really pretty flower to it, Chris. So in the spring, some people will dig it up and say, geez, I'd like to take this to my house. Mm-hmm. And then we have spread of infestation too. Mm-hmm. This is a rhizome system. This is by roots, and it grows really laterally through the root system.
All right, and the reason why you didn't cut it this morning is you don't want others to cut it either, and attack that. And that's where who's the special guest that's coming in at the city council meeting again?
Her name is Vicki Sawicki.
Okay, so when Vicki's there, she'll give us even more in depth of how to attack this a little bit. But it sounds like just with that regular persistence over those few years, you can kind of get around this, at least from what your observations were with that homeowner.
It will take constant maintenance. I don't know if you have an invasive species, if you can ever say, I'm totally rid of it.
Okay.
It's just a constant vigilance. But the first attack with some of the places that we have in Ludington that have a ton of it, they're going to need help. It's not a homeowner thing that they can probably tackle.
And when you mentioned the conversation, the conservation, that's a homeowner's expense because it's in their yard, right? To do that. Does the city look at it, the whole city as a whole, to say, hey, we need to help these homeowners, but obviously budget is budget, and it's tough to take care of everything. But as a city, as a whole, is the city looking more at collectively trying to handle this?
Well, we really are, because this is a city problem and residents' problems too. So actually, Chris, this has just come up pretty suddenly here.
Okay.
We've just investigating a grant that we might get through the West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission to help with this. We're talking about possibly doing a 50-50 situation, like we do with the sidewalk, for invasive species, to get that first treatment under control, teach the landowners how to do that. Vicki comes from part of the conservation district called SISMA. And they have all the people that have the equipment, those special syringes. They have the safety gear that they need to wear. They'll bring the chemical in, and really, it's not super expensive to have them do that. They work very efficiently. They get things done quickly. So it is a city issue. We are talking about plans that we could do to help people too. There's nothing in the books right now, but we're trying to make people aware right now. Like, if you think you have something in your yard, you could call me, or you could call the city and just say, would someone come and look at this? And is this a problem? So I've already been to 8 people's houses since we started talking about this just the other day.
Yeah.
And 7 of them had an invasive species in their yard.
Well, in the next one, if you don't mind, the comparison here, this is a pretty shocking moment because you have what it will look like when it's young in its initial phase, and you can show that to the camera. This is what plant is this again?
This one is bittersweet.
Okay, and this bittersweet, it looks just like a wild branch, or just a wild weed that might grow in your yard. And especially those leaves. Let's turn it around just a little bit to show what the leaves look like for those that are watching online. Does this, it looks like a climber a little bit, right? Are we looking at it on fences and homes and such? Where do we see this mostly?
This is definitely a climber.
Okay.
He likes to climb, particularly trees, and actually he will strangle trees as he grows older and bigger. He'll strangle those trees. I always like to say to people, if it's got this whippy kind of look to it, it's probably bittersweet. It does grow on fences. It grows on houses. And I brought a really interesting example.
Yeah, this is insane.
Right. This is from Cartier Park. This is bittersweet here. A piece of bittersweet, probably, we guessed, about 50 years old, that was strangling a tree. Wow. And the Conservation District works with us in Cartier Park. They cut it down, and I asked if I could take it with me. So this is amazing. And this is, we do have some of this in our city, this big even.
Well, and you brought up a very important point, is that sometimes you look at one that's just climbing the house, or but that was pretty permanent on a tree that was killing that tree or those trees, and to chop through that, obviously probably not the easiest thing, but to see how that has grown over the years, and I think the second part of my thought is, sometimes we look at the vegetation out there that's like, oh, well, that's part of the park, or that's part of the environment. But no, that's what it was. That's what it is, and it's a bad thing, right?
Right. And we've lived with some of these invasive species for a long, long time, and they haven't been as problematic as we're seeing in the last 5 or 6 years. Now they're really starting to become pretty prolific. And again, the city of Ludington seems to be an epicenter for some of this stuff. So we'd like to be proactive and get ahead of it before it really gets to be a a structural problem in our city.
Do we know, has there been any sort of research on how many homes or how much of the city is affected by this yet? Is that something maybe down the road, or are you just looking for the community to kind of, look in their yards and then report that to the city? What's that plan of attack there?
Well, actually, ideally, right now, we'd like to have people become aware that when they look in their backyard, or maybe they go out in a field somewhere and they say, oh, that's bittersweet right there. I know that. We'd like people to become aware of it so they know what it is. If we get a grant to work on this, the first thing that the Conservation District did recommend was that we take a survey. Mm-hmm. We go out and see, where are these invasive species? Is knotweed centered in the northern part of the city, and how much of it do we have? Okay. So we have some kind of an idea on what we're working with, but just to make people aware at this point that, oh, I didn't know that was a problem. Yeah.
Should our animals and our kids and family in general be concerned about these?
These three, the sap on the knotweed can be a little irritating to some people, but not dangerous, not fatal.
Okay.
Bittersweet doesn't have anything. Tree of Heaven stinks a lot. Yeah. I've got a sample here and had Chris smell that. Yeah. But it's not. They do say some people, if you cut a lot of it down, can have some heart problems. But I think for the most part, it's not. As it's growing, it's not dangerous.
And just really annoyance when it takes over your yard in that particular case. Again, we have Vicki coming in August 14th to City Council. She'll be there, probably maybe even bring some of the samples like what you brought in this morning. Want to educate the citizens here, but also, as we mentioned, Kathy, in the start of the segment, this can be across West Michigan, across the listening area and viewing area here. So people want to look out for those. And you had mentioned this early on, is these are just three species, but there's a ton of other ones out there. And would you recommend like picking up an invasive species book or some sort of research that our listeners and viewers can do?
Sure. There are books in the library. The Conservation District has a real nice pamphlet booklet. Vicki's going to bring some things with her Monday night. And we attack invasive species at Cartier Park twice a month. The second and fourth Tuesdays. First Tuesday at 10 a.m. and second Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if anybody wants to come out there to look at... Cartier Park has 23 invasive species in it.
Wow.
So we work out there, and we always talk to the people that are walking by. But if anybody's interested, they could certainly come out there too and do that.
And I know you can't predict the future in regards to the grant, but is there, from the research that you've done so far, do you see that will go through potentially, and that'll, for the next year or years, there will be a program put in place by the council, by the city in general to help residents?
That's my hope. Of course, you have to realize I'm a little bit of a tree hugger, so I hope that's part of what we think is important. Yeah. But the grant will come through the new infrastructure monies from the federal government. Okay. And so I think there's some real promise there, and we will put our request in early, and hopefully we'll be right up there. Invasive species is one of the target items for the infrastructure grant because it can affect the water and sewer line so much. Yeah. So I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Yep. And we do see that is going to be, it's already showing an issue with some of the sewer lines, some of the basements and such. And I can't imagine, and that's a topic for another day just to dive into that, what it will be like to try to get underground and figure out these root systems. That's a whole beast in itself, isn't it?
Right. And if I can talk, Chris, about Tree of Heaven just a minute.
Yeah.
Because this is the one that concerns our DPW the most. And this is Tree of Heaven. And if you crush its leaves, it smells like rotten peanut butter. This is kind of hard to tell. There are walnut trees and sumac that look a lot alike, but they don't have that same odor to them. And I'm standing right next to this one that cut this morning, and it does have an odor to it. This is the one that grows. If you you drive down almost any alley in Ludington, you will see these trees growing in the alley. And the alleyways contain a lot of our sewer and water lines, especially sewer lines. So these things are going to be an issue for us coming down the road. The problem is they grow about 6 to 8 feet a year.
Wow.
They grow very, very quickly, and they get to be huge trees.
Well, we're already seeing some of the viewers on our Facebook page commenting. Aaron just said, thanks for the info. Pretty sure I have bittersweet in the yard. I'll need to take care of it this weekend. So, and that's what you want. You want people to identify these as soon as possible and try to nip it in the butt. With this particular species, what's it called one more time that you have in your hand?
And this is Tree of Heaven.
Okay. How do you, if you don't mind, is there certain characteristics? You said that there's, it's comparable to other that's not invasive species that we want to not cut down because of, that's something normal. How do we identify this other than the smell? Is there other characteristics, if you don't mind, or not?
Actually, right now is a really interesting time with Tree of Heaven because there's female and male Tree of Heavens, which is kind of strange for trees. Okay. But the females right now are in seed, and they're really pretty orange, yellow seed pods, lots of them, thousands of them. And you'll see them. So if you're driving by and you see a tree that's got a lot of long leaves on it, and it's got these seed pods, you can't miss them right now. But one tree can produce over 300,000 seeds. And then as the wind takes it in the fall, where those seeds land, a new tree can start. It also spreads by its roots, too. So this one is... And the easiest way, really, Chris, is to smell it.
Okay. All right. Good information there. Kathy, did we miss anything this morning to talk about? I know it's, with you said 23 to 27 species just in the park. I can't imagine what else we have in our backyards and homes and so on and so forth. And we just discovered 3 of them this morning. Anything else that we should make sure that the community is aware of?
I guess the main thing is from the whole program here, too, and City Council meeting coming up, is as you become aware of, especially these 3, which seem to plague the city the most, please talk to your neighbors, too. If you see that your neighbors have some bittersweet or Tree of Heaven or something, say, wow, maybe we should look at taking care of that and getting rid of that. Now, it's not easy to get rid of these, and a lot of times, most of the time, we're going to need some expert help. Some of those chemicals I would not want to put out for just anybody to use. I'm a retired chemistry teacher, and so some of those things require more expertise than most people would have, but not all of them. And once you get into the maintenance stage, I think homeowners can take care of that themselves. But please spread the word and look around your neighbor's house too and say, oh my gosh. Because once you notice things, I think especially this whippy bittersweet, people say, oh, there's bittersweet. Yep. I just talked to the mayor the other day, went to his house. He's got bittersweet in his backyard. And he said, Kathy, now I see it everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like that I know about it.
Yeah, it's like when we buy a car, right? And we see the same car everywhere. Now we're looking at the plants all around us that we need to eliminate. And from our yard and obviously the neighbor's yard, and having those conversations with your neighbor, very important, very important. August 14th, City Council meeting. That's when Vicki will be there to discuss this more. We encourage people to come out. I think that's probably going to be a very, very busy meeting, very packed meeting, because, just based on just the first couple of comments on our Facebook here, that we're probably dealing with this more than we know. And I think that's we're just scratching the surface on this.
And one last thing, Chris, if I can. Yeah. Vicki's going to come to City Council, basically to alert the City Council and people in the city on these 3 invasive species in particular. But if there is interest, she would come back and give a general session. Okay. This will not be open for question and answers from the audience that night. City Council can ask questions because we're just learning about it too. But she is more than willing to come back and give a general
overview of the
for everybody.
Absolutely. All right, looking forward to that. Kathy, thank you for coming in this morning. Kathy Winczewski, City Council member here in Ludington. And again, we were just talking about the Ludington area, but it's probably throughout the listening area, so make sure you're looking for that. If you missed any part of this segment, you can watch it in its entirety on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel, and we encourage you to do that. Kathy, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks.
Absolutely. Stand by for a moment. As we coming up next, we've got music on Mom FM from Post Malone and more country hits coming up as well on Hot Country Hits 99.9.
Country music fans, get ready for a night you'll never forget. Join us at Sticks in Ludington on Friday, August 25th at 8 p.m. as we welcome country music rising star Mitch Rossell to our stage.